Welcome everyone to another video, and in this video we are going to be doing a follow-up video to my last video, which was will lock on break PvP, and the conclusion that I had out of that was that there's absolutely no way Niantic is going to let this happen, because the numbers and the usage is absolutely ridiculous. And for about an hour or so, we had these like absolute godlike Pokemon that were gonna run wild on the entire meta in all three leagues that performed absolutely extraordinary and just like did really crazy work. But then about an hour later, it got nerfed from 6 energy per turn to 5 energy per turn. So the question here is, are the Regis still good post nerf? So let's take a look at the numbers. So when we take a look at Registeel in the Great League, we see about a 14% decrease across the board. Pretty even distribution. Maybe slightly more losses, more losses in the 1 and 2 shields post nerf than pre nerf. And when I say pre nerf, is like the 6 energy per turn versus the 5 energy per turn. So you can see Registeel got a decrease, but nothing too crazy. And we see Registeel in Ultra League, we see a 16% nerf. Again, we see less of it in the Zero Shield because you're just getting up to the 1 charge move and likely KOing regardless and you're able to get to that charge move pretty easily. Versus in the 1 and 2 shields is where you suffer more because you start running into more situations where you need to do 2, 3, 4 charge moves to KO your opponent due to them shielding, the Regis in general don't have really great bait moves since all their charge moves are relatively expensive. But when we take a look at Regice, we see a dramatic decrease, and you'll see it's not in the Zero Shield. It suffers looks like about 15-16% decrease in the Zero Shield, about 20% decrease in the 1 shield, but you'll see it suffers a dramatic decrease going from 297 wins to 168, and that's just because of how costly the charge moves are for Regice, and the fact that lock on does almost no damage. You're relying almost purely on these charge move damage, and it just takes so long to get to them, so you end up creating a really huge nerf. Regice is one of those Pokemon that really needed that significant energy gain. In Ultra League, we see the drop off being a little bit less at 19% decrease, but still really relatively good and effective. And we see in Master League, we see a 20% decrease. And again, the biggest decreases are going to come in the 2 shield matchup because you're generating energy so much slower. As shields progress, you need to do more and more charge moves, which requires more and more energy. So the gap between 5 and 6 is starting to be felt more dramatically. And you'll see for Regirock, we see about a 14% decrease. Again, the same pattern, relatively similar in the 0 shield, and then more dramatic in the 1 and the 2 shield. And then in Regirock in Ultra League, we see only a 12% decrease. And in the Master League, we see about a 14% decrease. But the question is, how does this actually compare to the best of the meta? Pre-introduction to Lock On, Altaria was the best, had the highest overall PV poke score, and then we can see the comparisons with these new updated numbers, and you'll see in the Zero Shields, Registeel and Regice still outperform Altaria, while Regirock is slightly behind, and you'll see in the 1 shield, Registeel is pretty close to Altaria, but still behind, and then Regice starts to fall off even more, and then Regirock even more so. But you'll see in the 2 shield, Registeel puts up a very comparable number to Altaria, but you'll see Regice and Regirock start to fall off pretty dramatically, especially Regice when you go to the 2 shield scenario. But you'll see that from a total wins perspective and consistency perspective, Altaria might be a little bit more consistent across the board in even shield scenarios, and that's because Dragon Breath is doing so much damage, and Sky Attack is not that much energy, versus like Registeel tends to do much better in the 0 shield compared to the 2 shield, but still justified its newly crowned and just barely over Altaria, and you can see that play out in the numbers. In Ultra League, you'll see that Giratina Origin Form is what had previously held the crown, and that's also now held by Registeel. And you'll see that in the 0 shield, Registeel, Regice, and Regirock all perform really well. And again, because they have really great energy efficient charge moves that are just really expensive, and they're able to get that off when they're not shielded. But you'll see in the 1 shield, it's actually very similar to Giratina Origin Form, and then you'll see in the 2 shield is where Giratina Origin Form starts to separate itself with its ability to bait effectively with Ominous Wind, and then be able to nuke with Shadow Ball. And you'll see that's reason why it still retains a pretty high rank, but you'll see at Registeel, its numbers, again, much better in the 0, certainly not as consistent as Giratina Origin Form, but still performs very well and justified in its number 1 ranking. And when we take a look at the Master League comparison, we see that Dialga just stands way above Regice and Regirock, and that's expected. You'll see that in Great and Ultra League, only Registeel is super dominant. Regirock and Regice still perform well, but with Registeel's stat distribution and its move pool that's available to it, it's a reason why it still stays on top. While Regice and Regirock, because their fast move got nerfed, it's no longer able to make up the stat distribution difference between that and the very top of the league. We're talking about Dialga, the Giratinas, other Pokemon that have really tremendous stats and really great fast and charge moves that do damage across the board. So you see Dialga does stand way above Regice and Regirock in terms of performances in the Master League. But when we took a look at Registeel versus, like, I pulled up the top 10, not including Registeel, so I went to like the top 11 since Registeel is number 1. And what I've done is I've just categorized them as wins and losses in the 0, 1, and 2 shields, and you'll see very consistent with the overall numbers that in the 0 shield it actually does very well. It's able to beat Altaria, Defense Deoxys, Tropius, Skarmory, Bastiodon, even Vigoroth, and Zyolis. I'm never gonna pronounce that name correctly. And then you'll see in the 1 shield, it loses a couple of matchups. In this case, Defense Deoxys, and then you see in the 2 shields it loses even more. So you'll see that is actually a pretty big concern in terms of its ability to win out these matchups against the top 10 as shields play out. And ironically, it's like much better as a closer. And it's if you get in a situation where you have 1 shield and your opponent has 0, then that's almost a guaranteed win in Registeel. There's very few Pokemon, and oftentimes they're gonna have to rely on like fire types, like Charizard, for example, or Alolan Marowak, to be able to win out in those type of scenarios where Registeel has 1 shield and your opponent has 0. So, and onto the last slide. So Registeel suffers the lowest win rate, drop rate, but does lose some key matchups. Azumarill, for example, it was able to beat Azumarill with Hydro Pump, at least in the 0 shield scenario pre-nerf, and then and it loses some other 2 shield matchups that would normally win, and that makes it not nearly as dominant as it was when it had 6 energy return, but still a very excellent and great Pokemon, and it's certainly going to have some use in certain cups and in open freestyle and draft. But Regice and Regirock may have some play in the future because they have some really interesting moves, and Lock On is still generating energy really quickly, but lacks not dual typing, and has poor single typing. What I mean by that is Ice and Rock are not really great defensive typings, and it will hurt its meta relevance quite significantly, especially in restricted cups. But doesn't mean that you won't see some play with Regice and Regirock, but certainly not in the same capacity. So, anyways, I'm gonna leave it there. If you guys like this video, or if you want to see more of videos like this, let me know down in the comment section below, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see everyone in the next video.